So why do you think the APC, because all of them voted against yesterday, we saw the numbers, all the members of APC at the Senate voted against the outright electronic transfer of election results. Why do you think they're against it? Why do you think they're saying something PDP knows that they don't know?
I think it's a case.
They look like they're looking out for the people, like they want everybody to vote, citing 43%, meaning that you're going to be minusing a great population.
That's a big lie.
Yeah.
That's a very big lie.
Welcome to episode 19 of Reactions. My name is Mr. Sao. Joining me today is Mr. Henry Kwa. Welcome back.
Hello, guys.
Yeah, you can explain to them where you were. Yeah.
I was at the yacht. My birthday party was off the shores of Nigeria. So.
Oh, your birthday party? You were not invited.
Yeah. Yeah. Close. It was a family. Close family.
This one is trying to be shady. You're not serious. Mr. Houston Wanchuku.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Today, how are you doing though?
I'm doing good. I'm doing fine.
How
are you doing?
Me, I'm okay. I'm stressed. Yeah, I'm actually stressed because we have been stressing behind the scenes. So in case I flop today, yeah, you guys should forgive me. These guys have been stressing my life out.
We are not capable of
somebody
flopping.
behind the camera has been stressing us as well. Yep. Anyway, are you guys good to go?
Our number one fan. Let's mention that. That's our number one.
She's not our number one fan. Yeah. Anyway, before we start reacting today, why am I having an accent? Yeah. Please subscribe to Page 36 TV on YouTube. Thank you to everybody that's been watching. Our views are growing up daily by daily. Please subscribe, like, share, comment. Let us know what you think about all the topics we're going to be addressing today. So let me get straight to business. Yes, so the Senate on Thursday amended over 150 clauses in the 2010 Electoral Act, but failed to make the transmission of election results compulsory in future elections. That's the electronic transmission of election results. So the Senate ruled out the possibility of having election results transmitted electronically, which I said when it voted that. So this is what they decided at the Senate yesterday, that the Nigerian Communications Commission, which is NCC, with the National Assembly's approval, will determine whether the Independent National Electoral Commission, that's INEC, could or would, or should in future elections, transmit election results electronically or not. So during the voting, the APC senators, including those from southern Nigeria, whose governors had in a meeting on July 5, rejected a ban on electronic transfer of election results. So those APC senators voted against electronic transmission of election results, basing their decision on the fact that the NCC had earlier said that only 43% of Nigeria has internet coverage, network coverage. So a high-ranking member of the APC who spoke to The Punch said this, and I quote, so he said, this is politics, and as the governing party, you do not allow... I don't think I'm recording.
Are you?
I'm recording. I have to check, sorry.
Awesome.
So,
you do not allow...
let me just continue. So a high-ranking member of the APC who spoke to The Punch said this, and I quote. So he said, this is politics. And as the governing party, you do not allow the opposition to dictate the pace. Those in opposition certainly know something we do not know. The way the PDP were pushing for this electronic transfer of results or electronic voting with NGOs and international organizations backing them up and all that. should tell you something. So this him, I'm defending the decision that they made. So he said, yes, we appreciate technology, but the reality on ground is that we still have the challenge of infrastructure. There are several villages where these electronic devices do not work. We are simply not ready for the kind of changes the opposition is trying to force us to accept. So Henry Kwasi, I was going to come to you first.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do, just give us a breakdown of the history of this bill, this electoral amendment bill. What was the content of the bill before? What changed? At what point do you even think anything changed? Then why do you think that the APC is so resistive? Do you think the argument here of this 43% coverage of internet network in Nigeria, does that stand? Do you think this is the main reason? Because he said that, and in another breath, he said there's something that the PDP don't know. Why are they fighting for it? So just give us a breakdown of this, then we'll move from there.
So I think what is even more baffling in this situation is the fact that what people thought was the original version of this draft amendment has turned out to not be the real version of the draft amendment.
So people thought.
Yes. So this is how this process works. When a new bill is drafted, once it is heard on the floor of the National Assembly, whichever of the houses, lawmakers are given versions of this bill. Not just the committee members. Lawmakers are given versions of this bill. So it's as if you bring a submission from your constituency or something, and that submission is supposed to affect my own constituency as well. I'm supposed to take this document and acclimatize myself with it, understand what it is saying, and see whether my people want this thing or they don't want it. You understand? However, what happened? So this draft was not just written by the lawmakers themselves. What normally happens with respect to democratic institutions and the democratic process is that there are partners, development partners to Nigeria, whether they are what do they call them? Homegrown lobbyists or home-based lobbyists or foreign lobbyists, whatever they are. There are institutions that try to help developing countries like Nigeria build their democracy. You understand? So a process went into the drafting of the amendments to the Electoral Act. You understand? Now, after this thing had happened, you'd see, I can't remember the name of the lawmaker last week who was complaining that this is not the version of the bill that was submitted to the floor of the National Assembly. Now, after that happened, I don't know whether these lawmakers went through this bill by themselves after it was given to them, but it was left to the committee. You understand? Now, this committee has come back with a version of the bill that, whether we like it or not, we have to consider. Now, lawmakers are considering the bill, and as you've read there, a group of lawmakers, and this is not just about the Senate alone. It is the Senate and the National and the House of Reps as well. Today, I watched on Arise TV how some lawmakers from a particular party walked out on the whole process, and the whole funny dealing that went on, the Speaker of the House deciding to not preside over that particular session and whatnot. So now, the history of this Electoral Act is something that's very, very interesting. In the build-up to the 2015 elections, we did not have the level of technological advancement that we have today. When a former sitting president decided to take the bull by the horns and put technology in our electoral process. You understand? Jonathan had an amendment for the Electoral Act. Now, Buhari, this is the second time that an Electoral Act is being amended and presented to the president to sign, and he is well, I'm not saying he's refusing to sign. He has not signed this one into law yet. Hopefully, that will even be our get out of jail card. So let me go back and try to bring that into context. In the build-up to the 2019 elections, Buhari's problem with signing the Electoral Act into law was that it was because of an ECOWAS law that says you can't amend your electoral law 3 months to your election. It wasn't because this law did not get to him early enough. It had gone to him, he had sent it back, and then they sent it back again. By the time all of this happened, it was too close to call, and that had to be left. Now, one would think that the group of leaders that we have would be very serious about it, considering the different issues we've had with elections in Nigeria over time. You understand? We have struggled to find one free and fair election. In fact, the funny thing is, the last free and fair election we had in this country was because of technology. The card reader. This was how Buhari was able to defeat a sitting president and become president himself. He himself said it. You understand?
I'm sorry. Does the card reader doesn't need internet network?
Yes, so we'll get to that. Now, INEC has a process of verifying accreditation of voters. This would say, okay, these are the number of people who have been accredited at this polling unit, side by side with the voters register for that particular polling unit. You understand? None of this involves the transmission of heavy digital materials. So you're only transmitting text. You understand? Which is in kilobytes, basically. Of course, when you aggregate everything from all the different polling units, there's the tendency for it to be heavier. You understand? But you don't need 4G network. Just for us to make this very clear, you don't need 4G network to be able to transmit text results from one device to your server. You understand? And it is not it's not as if it is open to other people. So it's not like your MTN network is down, so that's going to be a problem. No, there's an infrastructure already that's already been set up. You understand? It is just, let's upgrade what INEC has to a point where we can say, from this point, this is the exact number of people who voted. So what we normally have is that when people vote at the polling unit, they declare who has won the election at that point. They display the results for everybody to see. However, from when that result is moving from the polling unit to the collation center, before the collation center announces its result, different things have happened. You understand? You'd either hear that the vehicle was not, what do they call them now? These INEC documents were not able to arrive there intact. One thing or the other had happened to it. What we are trying to do is to reduce human error. Not remove, we can't remove human error completely. We want to reduce it to a point where we can say, okay, to a large extent, this election is credible. However, it looks as if our leadership is not interested in that kind of.
So the electronic transfer is from the polling unit.
From the polling unit.
So we just transfer it immediately rather than taking it physically.
Yes, so it's like sending text. So what normally happens with our regular GSM networks is that if all of us are connected to a network and that network is not very strong, the network will struggle to send packets. Whatever you send via text or you download, they're called packets of data. You understand? So these tiny bits that you're trying to send, if the network gets jammed, it cannot send. It cannot send freely. However, INEC has a system in place already that already does this type of work. So when you use your card reader to verify your voters, you're not waiting till after the election to send that information to the server. You send it immediately. You understand? If you remember during the judicial panel, when Atiku submitted this petition against the APC and INEC in the last election, INEC did consider that yes, they have a server. You understand? So that server already does the job to a certain degree. So we don't need a new telecommunications service provider. We do not need new fiber optic cables and whatnot. So what has been said so far about 43% internet all of these things, if we are being honest, all of these things are just showing the thinking and the body language of the people who wield the power in Nigeria today.
The use of card readers.
Exactly.
That's just what I wanted to figure out.
Yeah, so that's the long and short of it.
So where do you think the APC, because all of them voted against yesterday, we saw the numbers, all the members of APC at the Senate voted against the outright electronic transfer of election results. Why do you think they're against it? Why do you think they're saying something PDP knows that they don't know?
I think it's a case.
They look like they're looking out for the people, like they want everybody to vote, citing 43%, meaning that you're going to be minusing a great population.
That's a big lie. Yeah. That's a very big lie. So, every time on this podcast, I'm always trying to, create the bigger picture so that we can see. In the last 3 months, we've had 3 sitting governors from one party move over to the other party. Yeah. The reason they are moving over is because they believe that on that particular platform, they are likely to win the election.
Based on?
They are likely to win the election.
Because of all this.
So the infrastructure. So basically, what guarantees the APC's ability to win the election is refusing to include electronic transmission of results from polling units to the INEC server.
What I feel though, looking at all this, as a ruling party, I feel you can manipulate anything. You have the power to do anything. The president appoints the INEC chairman. You can easily use him to manipulate anything.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from when you said it's easier to rig it manually.
Yes, it is.
To easily say, oh, there was an accident or wherever.
Exactly.
Because when you said that, I wanted to counter you to say, okay, don't they announce this result at the polling unit? At least all the party agents, they are supposed to take the figures though. Mm-hmm. But when you say things, force of nature, force majeure happen along the way, you cannot contest that one. Election votes are gone, votes are gone. Do you understand?
What has happened already.
I get you here,
and
though.
Another thing that this does for us is if you're able to transmit results electronically, we won't only be transmitting results electronically. We'll be transmitting the real state of elections at that polling unit. Do you understand? Now, so if there's vandalism, we'll be able to transmit that from the polling unit. So if you bring up your petition at the judicial panel, you will say there's evidence, time-stamped, and all of that. Do you understand? Now, our refusal to move in this direction gives us less reason to be optimistic about what elections may hold, what elections may look like in Nigeria come 2023. Let's not even act as if these elections are going to happen right now. No, they're not going to happen right now. If we have the will to make anything happen, we have 2 years to put things in place.
Mr. Houston, what did you think about the votes cast yesterday and the passing of these? One part that we didn't address here, but we'll get to that more in the second bit. But I'll just say that here. So what they actually decided, what the Senate decided yesterday. They didn't just outrightly cancel electronic transmission of results. So what they said is that electronic transmission of results, basically, it will be based on when the NCC tells the National Assembly that, okay, it's good for us to have it, meaning we have more coverage right now. They didn't determine what percentage, because we are 43, according to them right now. They didn't say, oh, maybe when we get to 70, 80, 90, or 100, so they said when the NCC advises the National Assembly that we can, and the National Assembly still approves that INEC can transmit electronically, then election results will be transmitted electronically.
Firstly, Henry,
basically,
before now,
am I right?
Before now,
that's
before
what
now. Before now, do we have this transmission thing?
Not officially. So what happened was in Edo State, in Edo and
they got Ondo as well.
And Ondo, what stopped INEC from electronically transmitting results at that point was it was not captured in the law. So we are not, INEC is not saying we are not ready to transmit results. It is the national, it is the elected
holding them down.
Exactly.
And that leads me to this. Do you want to say something? Yeah, that leads me to this next point, because the former INEC chairman, that got Buhari in power.
He brought Buhari in power.
So former INEC chairman, Professor Atahiru Jega, reacting to the decision of the Senate yesterday, he said this, and I took just this part of his quote. I felt this was interesting. So he said that the decision of the Senate would undermine the independence of INEC, and he said, how can you make the decision of INEC subject to the confirmation, concurrence, or approval of the NCC, a body under the presidency? And what has the National Assembly, a legislative body, got to do with an executive decision of INEC?
Okay.
Do you get his reasoning right now?
I think this falls straight into his purview. Please.
It is coming from somebody who has experienced independence.
Yes, he did. Jonathan allowed him enjoy independence.
I can understand where Jega is coming from. He experienced that independence, that electoral independence. And I mean, INEC was truly independent during his time. And he took all the credit at the end of the day for being able to conduct a successful
without any
independence election devoid of corruption and all that and rigging. So for him to come out now to say this, it tells how far we've come. Or how far the INEC has actually come in the last
6 years.
The last 7 years. So it's clearly been a downward trajectory. It's not been what it was during his time. So what he's saying is, if the INEC continues with this, if the National Assembly continues with this approach, with this new approach, it will continue to undermine the what's it called?
Independence of INEC.
The independence of it will continue to undermine the independence of INEC and
our democracy.
Yes, and our democracy as well. So I clearly understand where he's coming from, and I like the fact that people are beginning to speak up, and not just people, stakeholders. These are people who will talk, and
yeah, because when you look at what he actually said technically, because I had to break it down to understand it, because right now the National Assembly seems to be in charge. How do you dictate how an independent body is supposed to function? So what I still want us to talk about, INEC is supposed to be an independent body, and we're trying to see how we can have free and fair elections in Nigeria. How do we think this INEC is supposed to operate? First of all, the INEC chairman gets appointed by the president. A normal Nigerian, because I cannot use world standard right now, we have this attitude of which, you give me power, you have to be loyal to me. There's only something attached. Apart from people like Goodluck Jonathan that could let you operate, So I think it's very difficult right now. How do we ensure that INEC is actually independent, like truly independent? How can INEC run independently? Should we have a situation where the president should not be the one appointing the INEC chairman? Even if we have that, how do we appoint the INEC chairman? How do we make sure that these people don't feel obliged to anybody? I feel they should even be the ones to make their rules. I don't think the National Assembly had to. I think we need to even give INEC, that free way where they can determine how they conduct elections.
Autonomy, yeah?
That autonomy. However, whether they want to transmit whatever, let them consult with those stakeholders. Let INEC be the one talking to NCC. Let INEC be the one talking to anybody. I don't think we should leave politicians. Because who are the people that make up National Assembly? They are politicians that rely on INEC. So I think this entire system, we need to change this entire.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I remember the last US elections where Donald Trump, there was a leaked phone call tape, phone call audio by the president calling the the electoral commissioner of one state somewhere and asking him to make sure that some things like that. So in such situations in Nigeria, if that were to happen in Nigeria, we all know what the answer would be. He wouldn't even object. We had this, I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia, the governor of Georgia, or the electoral commissioner or something like that of Georgia. I think
I remember that phone call. I was asking what's going on. How come?
What's going on? Make sure the Republicans win this state.
Make sure this state is on the
red. Make sure this state is red and all that. And he even though this person was working with the Electoral Commission and the president is the president, he objected to all of that and said it will go according to how it's supposed to go and all that. But in Nigeria, imagine this climb, with this political climb that we are under right now, if any commissioner where we have people who, without proper background check, are being, loyalists to the president, are being appointed as INEC commissioners, it will not be truly independent. But now we're talking about solutions. So I think I know that one of the ways we could actually make the INEC very independent is, firstly, education. Now, talking about education, I'm not talking about the random teaching people and all that. The INEC should have a college, they should have a college, an electoral, not electoral college like we know. They should have a school that is just for elections just like we have EFCC and these all other things. But now this one is going to be
like an INEC academy.
An INEC academy, thank you. An electoral academy.
You start training people how to.
You train people. Now, people will take these courses they'll take it as a postgraduate study. You could finish your first degree and decide to go, just like you can decide after this to go to NDA and all that. Now you could decide to be an electoral officer. Now, while you're doing this, why I'm saying why people need to attend this electoral academy is, through the electoral academy, they could run background check on you and see if at any point in your life you were a party member or you supported this party, because they know in the future there's no way you will not be sentimental towards these people. Because you cannot have people who have waved flags in the past of certain parties become commissioners tomorrow. We all know exactly. We all know how that will turn out. So I think we should have electoral academies where people attend these things. And we've had situations where people say in Nigeria, illiterates rule and professors come to count the votes. So if we have this thing, it's not just going to be bringing up professors. I mean, professors, they would vote at the end of the day. So exactly.
Shewon has even been sentenced to 15 years now. The guy from the 2015 elections, Akwa Ibom or Rivers. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So we should have this academy where you would run background checks on these people. Because you know why I'm saying this? I'm trying to liken it to officiating the referee academy they have in the UK. People where they had, I mean, everybody in the UK, virtually everybody in the UK gets to have their boyhood club that they supported as children or as youngins. They supported different clubs. But the moment they go into the academy, they drop all of those things, and the academy still goes an extra mile. Sorry, the FA go an extra mile to appoint people who supported certain clubs in different divisions. For instance, if your boyhood club happens to be in the lower division, you become automatically a referee in the higher division. You don't ref in the lower division. So this thing, INEC, we always say it's as clinical or as important as a heart attack or as important as having a surgery. That's how important it is for people to vote. Right now, I like the fact that we're talking about the nucleus of this election, which starts with the electoral bodies, not just the people that have to vote. Because if you call everybody to come and vote, if the system is corrupt, they will mess the whole thing up. It's a waste of So I like the fact that we're talking about this. So I think we should be able to correct the system first, the electoral system, by making them totally independent. Now, that's also one. Now, they're also going to have their security. I'm not calling the police, because if you appoint a police commissioner, if a police commissioner has been appointed by the president and the INEC commissioner has not been appointed by the president, there's going to be a sort of intimidation coming from the military angle against the independent angle. So if the INEC commissioner is independent, the police commissioner is not independent. Although the police commissioner is not typically appointed by the president, it's been appointed by the police what do you call them? Council, exactly. But we know what the military loyalty is to the presidency in Nigeria here, and law enforcement agencies. So I think the INEC should also have their own force. I don't know if you understand what I mean. They should have. They should have their own
looking at a scenario where people still need to come out.
They should have their own security. I also do not.
Nigerians don't need to come out too.
I'm saying I also do not like the idea where we have elections being conducted and we have law enforcement agencies guiding or protecting the INEC officials.
That should not even be bad if those security agencies are operating the way
that will typically take us to another issue of the independence of the police, like police independence. So since we're talking about INEC independence, they deserve their own force too. Just like, what's it called, for instance?
But from what you have said, how do we get an INEC chairman? From the
from the electoral academy.
Okay, from there.
Yes,
it's the way. I think it's the way the Judicial Council picks who should be on the bench of the Supreme Court.
Exactly, like I said earlier. I just feel this INEC should be left to run itself.
I do feel. If I'm just to add to what Houston is saying, I like what Houston is suggesting. I feel like, for once, I am seeing something that we can start to work from somewhere to arrive at a particular place. However, I am disturbed at what the Nigeria. So it's not just about our institutions. It's not just about the people who are in the public eye. We understand what our politicians and appointed officials are doing because we see it on a smaller scale in our own immediate environment, our own immediate societies. You understand? We understand that the INEC chairman who is appointed by the president cannot go against the president in this particular case. We understand it because we can relate with it.
Yes.
You understand? However, as we said earlier, there was a time where a president. So it still boils down to the caliber of leaders that we appoint.
Okay, I get where you're coming from, though. But when you talk about that time, where the INEC chairman or whoever we saw during that period, is because he was allowed to function.
Yeah. So let me give a bit more context to that. It's all these years ago, and it feels as if we've forgotten certain things that actually happened. Okay. There was Orubebe in the ICC on that day. It wasn't just about Orubebe. The president himself could not vote, could not get accredited with the card reader. Let's not forget these things. You understand? However, the INEC was allowed to do its thing.
He could have easily messed up the entire system.
Do you understand? Now, also in our national conversations, we shouldn't even have a situation where an independent body, whether on paper or just in name, it is called Independent National Electoral Commission. An independent body is we are hearing the INEC is allowed to do something. You don't do that. You understand?
For INEC.
Exactly. So if we are discussing INEC and we are saying INEC is allowed to, it means the same thing across board in all our institutions. Houston, the reason why I even said this was this was something that I expected Houston to take on, which he did. Yeah. Houston said several times how this particular Senate president said that he had come to work for the presidency.
Executive.
You understand? Now, the last bit, I believe strongly that the last bit of democracy in Nigeria was eroded in the last election, where we had lawmakers who were not afraid to face whatever form of, what do they call it now? Criticism, persecution, do you understand? For the sake of what they believed was right. You get what I'm saying? Now, so, if governors are cross-carpeting, despite the fact that you cannot tell one tangible thing that what the one party is making them cross-carpet for, if we are throwing out electoral transmission of results, if we have a president
that are turning against their governors,
hold on, we have a senate, we have a president as well, push forward the name of his own aide to be in. Do you understand? Do you understand what is actually happening? And my fear here is that we are several steps behind. Do you understand? My fear here is that these people have gone far ahead of us.
It's not like we're several steps. Sorry to cut you short. It's behind. I think we are going several steps.
No. That's not even where I meant. If we were playing chess between us and these people, we've lost the plot from the beginning. Where they are heading, we don't even know where the checkmate is going to come from. Do you understand? Now, if we are going to toe this line, the only thing that's going to happen is a one-party state. And it is a gradual erosion of the institutions. It is a gradual erosion of the trust that we have in these particular systems. It is a gradual erosion of democracy. It is a gradual, what do they call it? Birthing of military dictatorship in Nigeria. That's my fear. Do you understand? Where if the military comes out today and says, listen, your electoral bodies cannot hold elections. Your judiciary cannot serve justice. Do you understand? Your lawmakers, your politicians are embezzling money. What other excuse do they need to take over governance?
I said something once, and I don't know how you guys I don't know how you truncated that idea. I said, is it possible that a law could actually, a law could be drafted or a bill could be passed whereby people are not allowed to defect? Because
what they're trying to do with that one, which I like as well, because I think it's already applicable to legislative, like lawmakers, where if you move from one party to the other, you lose your seat.
Yeah, because
so they're trying to do that one right now for the governors and for the president.
That already exists. That already exists.
No, for governor and president does not exist.
I think
for lawmakers, because I
okay. Yeah, the ruling was the ruling was for the.
Because I realize that whenever I go online and I look up American politicians, I see that Republicans have Republicans since they were.
I don't think that this person defected here.
No, defection is a part and parcel of a growing democracy.
Okay.
It is a part and parcel.
I think it's like cheating the system. It's like abusing the system. Because I see people like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton has been, she's been a Democrat for so long, herself and her husband, since he was in university.
Yeah.
Clinton was actually a Democrat. I've seen people like the Bush family, they've been Republicans for so long. And this is the same Bush family that were not in tandem with the whole Trump idea. But they've been Republicans. All they do is, if we have a Republican whose idea we do not, align with, we just close our mouth until we pass.
Will work for us, that penalty, especially for these governors. They should do it for governors. President does not easily defect.
Yeah, I've seen Ben Shapiro speak against Trump and he's a Republican.
So when you move for your selfish interests, because they don't move for the people, they move for their selfish interests, like we have seen, then you lose your seat as a governor. Let's see that happen. Because, that even brings us to this next punitive story. So let me move. So still on the Senate. So the 9th Senate on Tuesday passed a bill seeking to establish the Electoral Offences Commission and mete out various punishments for different electoral offences in a bid to permanently stop the rigging of elections in the country. So the passage of the bill followed the consideration of a report by the Committee on INEC. Oh, yeah, I get what you said earlier. So the chairman of the committee, Senator Kabiru Gaya, in his presentation, I got that one, said that the bill became imperative, in view of INEC's inability to prosecute electoral offenders in accordance with the provisions of Section 149 and 150, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act as amended. So this is still in line of what we're talking about, the independency of INEC. So the function of the commission includes investigating electoral offences created in any laws relating to elections in Nigeria, prosecution of electoral offenders, and maintaining records of all persons investigated and prosecuted, among others. So part of the recommendations include, I'm just going to read 2 of the recommendations. What I would do, we reported this on page 36news.com. So I'm going to put the link. So in case you don't have details of the other punishments, there's a lot of punishment to put here. So the recommendations include 15 years jail term or 30 million naira fine for any security personnel or election official engaged by INEC or State Electoral Commission who attempts to influence the outcome of an election. Then another one is at least 20 years imprisonment or a fine of at least 40 million naira for any candidate or party agent who damages or snatches ballot boxes, ballot papers, or election materials before, during, and after an election without this I don't understand this last clause, So it says without the permission of an election official in charge of the polling station. Okay, there are a couple of issues here. So we're still looking at the independence of INEC and how we can have free and fair elections. I like this, because I feel Nigerians, the only way we can function is when there are penalties. I like the jail terms. I don't like the fines. Throw fines away. These politicians are so rich that they can pay 30 million naira and go. They don't mind carrying ex-convicts on their head, allegedly, in my opinion. Throw fines away. I don't care whether it's 100 million. Jail terms, yes. But how is this really going to work? Do you understand? Because the Senate are creating this right now. I've not seen the whole system. I even think INEC should have its own judicial body, in my opinion. If you have this commission, have your judicial panel where you prosecute these electoral offences. Have a time stamp. So this will not be all those criminal cases that go on for 100 years. Have 3 months, reasonable time, to hear and convict these people. 3 months, not 6, not 2, 3 months. Throw the fines away. Have your independent judicial bodies that will hear these electoral offences, that will be able to now mete out these punishments. Who are going to be the members of this commission or the judicial body right now? I don't know. How are they going to be appointed? In fact, I think politicians, should stop getting into the National Assembly. Yes.
That's their work.
Yeah.
That's their work.
Because,
that's their work.
That's not the
National
work
Assembly.
Lawmakers.
They're lawmakers. Politicians are lawmakers. They've always been.
I think the
process that brings
National Assembly should be made up of intelligent lawyers, not a government that has finished.
Lawyers. So what happened to some of us who have political ambition?
Anyway, let's go to this one though. First of all, what do you guys think about this move to? We're not going to specifically look at this one that has this clause right now, but this move to mete out punishments right now. They have a long list. If you even sell voter's card and they catch you, you face jail term, 5 years or whatever. Do you think this is a welcome development, basically?
Just some nice, but there was one you guys talked about some time ago, some episodes back. You guys said politicians who actually give money. I think I was waiting to hear that.
I've not read the whole. Is that?
It's not there.
It's not there.
It's not a part of it. Then. Politicians who.
But when you lobby, part of lobbying, if you're lobbying the voter.
Influencing the election.
Yeah, if you influence the election, you can influence with even bag of rice. So I think they didn't want to limit it to just money.
No, I don't think they didn't want to limit it.
They needed holes.
They needed to leave it vague.
So that the judiciary can be fighting to interpret what did these lawmakers intend to make here. Smart. Yeah, but generally, go on.
So, I think it's a welcome development. But then, about the part where they said, without the authorization of a polling unit or an electoral officer.
Yeah, like if the PO says you can destroy the ballot paper.
That's like what Jacob Zuma's son said. Said protesters can protest and loot responsibly. So that's clearly almost the same thing.
You see why I say we should not have politicians in this. But do you know where I'm coming from? I think the members of National Assembly should stop being politicians, party members, because I think when they go there, they're not thinking about the people. They're thinking, how do I satisfy my party? How do I satisfy my party member? Because this clause, that phrase there, without the permission, because what will happen right now, if you drag somebody to court right now, I don't want
to be mischievous. Let's just settle it. Why I think they've put that in there is that there are times when you go to vote, when the ballot paper is damaged and you cannot. What this clause is saying is, if you tear it, it is part of it.
He said ballot papers, but ballot boxes. Why should you?
Or any form of election material.
Yeah, but why should you destroy ballot box?
No, not destroy ballot box. So in this, I feel like this last point, just the way they put this last part to this in the first clause, just the way they put it there to be deliberately vague, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like this last part was put there so that in case it happened, they would say, okay, no, the PO or whoever was in charge of that particular unit gave the go-ahead, said, oh no, that ballot paper is bad, so destroy it. Because there are cases where that ballot paper has to be destroyed so that another person cannot attempt to use it. You understand? That said,
so you cannot destroy right now except you get the authorization. People should pay attention because I bring all these things very intentionally. So right now, the way you're explaining it right now, and somebody listening thinking, what are we talking about? So for example, you go and vote and your ballot paper is actually bad. You can't just destroy it like that because you'll be creating an offense if this bill goes through.
You'll be liable to 20 years actually.
Yeah, do you understand?
20 years.
So you have to let the electoral official there know, then they will approve and say, okay, go on. And you need evidence to back that one
exactly.
up.
Now, where my problem is with this particular electoral offenses or commission. Whatever commission is, have we been able in the history of Nigerian elections, or let's not even say in the history of Nigerian elections, since 2015, since this particular administration came in, have we been able to submit petitions about a particular election, malpractices in that election, prove it, and get justice for it? Have we been able? We've always, any election that has been overturned based on technicalities, not on electoral malpractice. Do you understand? Now, it is one thing to have this lofty idea of an electoral offences commission and blah, 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 blah. Probably use it as part of your work, your efforts to create more jobs. It is one thing to do that. It is also another thing to look at the practicality of what you are proposing. In the history of Nigeria, it will be very, very, listen, in Nigeria, you can't even tender video evidence of electoral malpractice. You can't even, that's whatever you submit is going to be thrown out at the judicial panel before you even start going to the Supreme Court or appeal court.
Why?
They will tell you that the authenticity of this particular, what do they call it? This particular evidence that you have brought cannot be verified.
Really?
Yes, that's happened several times. Yes, that's happened several times. It has happened several times.
Bigger than the video?
Do you understand? Do you understand? So this is actually where we find ourselves. This is where we find ourselves. I feel like where we should, both the things that we should be trying to do, we are not necessarily doing them. We need as much as possible technological support to strengthen our institutions.
Because if there was that electronic transmission right now, we're not talking about ballot boxes, destruction. Do you understand? We need to get over and get out of this era.
Well, I think it will also be imperative to, whenever we have things like this, like laws like this or bills like this being passed, I think it will be imperative to show us those senators who actually passed these bills, because in the future, see, we always judge our politicians, and this also brings us back to voter education. We always judge our politicians by what they say during their manifesto, but these are some of the character that we see now. We'll be able to judge them with in the future, because when you find people come out and say, "I was robbed during this election," we'll tell them that, remember when you were a senator and you didn't move, you were against this bill. So I think at times like this, we need to whenever, in fact, not just for this, every other bill that's been passed, if it moves, if it becomes a law, if it ends up becoming a law, but I think it's good to either, publish the names or put them and let's know who was amongst these people who supported this and who didn't support this.
So let me even make this more interesting. Wow. The National Assembly has an electronic voting system. It has only used it once under the Saraki administration.
For voting on this bill?
Yes. Yeah. No, for voting on everything. What is supposed to happen is that lawmakers go on record. It is how you show your legislative career, the bills you voted for, the bills that you have submitted and whatnot. Listen,
make it a public record.
It is supposed to be part of public record. It is supposed to be part of public record. It is intentional. That's the reason why I'm extremely happy with what Senator Abaribe did. You see on every newspaper today,
for everybody to see.
Every newspaper today had the names of all the senators that voted for and all the senators that voted against. My problem, however, is yes, this is a good step towards awakening, because it's all in the mind of Nigerians. A lot of us feel like, I'm so far from that particular process. There's no way I can effect any form of change. You understand? What this does now, it has given you information. You understand? For how many years it will take for the political careers of these people, that is on record. You understand? We know already that some senators will try to run for governors, for governorship. Some senators will also try to eventually go and run for presidency. We will see all of these things. You understand? I hope that this continues to happen. Do you understand? This way, our minds will wake up. We will see the names of people who we think are actually progressives. They are not progressives. Exactly. The other time, remember the other time we were complaining about somebody that they called wolf in sheep clothing. You seen that person voted no. Do you understand?
So yes, we'll get to know. See, but
we need to get to that point. Before
Senator Kamala Harris, before Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the U.S., before she was picked as a running mate to Joe Biden. If you notice,
check her record.
Yeah, if you notice, they checked her record, and she was actually a candidate. She was one of the aspirants under the Democrats. And if you notice, a lot of the black population, especially in California, didn't support her. Yeah. When they said when they had to say the reason why they didn't support her, they said while she was a district attorney as well. While she was a district attorney, she sent people to jail for crimes as meager as smoking weed. People went to jail and served time. So she's really wicked, and we're not going to vote her. That was what people said until Joe Biden needed to pick a black woman for inclusiveness, and a black, a woman and a black.
But at least there were records for people to see. Yeah. But where I wanted to counter,
because if you leave them, they will come out and tell you, I will give you water, I will give you this, and people will vote them for lies.
But the thing though, that we're not still. We have to be honest about ourselves here. So in as much as we put out these records out there like they did yesterday and on the papers today, based on the move Senator Abaribe made. Yeah. I feel like we Nigerians we are so nonchalant sometimes that they don't even care.
Okay, so I feel part of the reason why we don't care in that kind of way is,
or maybe with time we'll care.
Yeah. So the progress with respect to Nigeria can never be quick. Progress has to be gradual. It has to take time.
We want to care, we overcare.
Exactly. Because what we are trying to do to achieve is behavioral change. Behavioral change cannot be achieved overnight. You understand? This has done something to my mind. I am a politically conscious person. I follow current affairs and whatnot. This has done something to my own mind. Do you understand? That on the record we have who voted against and who voted for. Do you understand? Now, if this happens on one other bill, we even have what do they call it? The Nigerian press, whatever bill that the NBC is trying to push. Exactly. We want to see this type of things. We want to see this type of things.
It's not just based on this bill.
No, it's not just about this.
Because they always bring out some very
by 2023, if we've had 6 or 7 of this type of situations, I feel like we'll have a better understanding of who some of these politicians are. You understand? And then we can make informed choices.
Because blackmail is part of democracy as well. If they say lobbying is part of democracy.
Oh no, it's not called blackmail in the context that you're saying. You're basically saying one candidate using that voting choice against. It's not blackmail. It's not blackmail.
These are just like what they did to Kamala, and Joe Biden as well. They pull out your records.
Exactly.
These are what you've done. For these reasons, we're not trusting you. Do you understand?
For those who actually support those reasons, we'll vote you as well if they want to. Some people heard Buhari's, they heard this whole stuff and they voted for it, and some people said they won't vote. Like I myself,
exactly. So we don't know what the situation is going to be, but it's good we have those records.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on. Time is going for us. So, President Muhammadu Buhari federal government has allocated a total of 4.8 billion naira to the National Intelligence Agency to monitor WhatsApp messages, phone calls, text messages, among others, of all Nigerians to easily spot out criminals, they claim, and other opposing voices. I added that one, So, out of the figure, 1.9 billion was earmarked for WhatsApp intercept solution. That's what they called it. 2.93 billion naira for Turaya interception solution. I brought out this Turaya one because when we talked about bandits in our earlier episodes, we were talking about how do the bandits communicate, and we said they don't use GSM, they say they use Turaya.
Who said so, please?
Gumi said they talk.
Yeah.
So if you said Turaya, is that walkie-talkie?
Turaya is like walkie.
No. Turaya is satellite phone.
They falls on that. No, to me, under this one, they should be able to monitor wherever Boko Haram.
No, they're already monitoring.
So 2.93 for Turaya interception solution, a communication system used for monitoring voice calls. Voice calls or call-related information, SMS, data traffic, among others. So this was contained in the supplementary budget approved by the National Assembly last week, Wednesday. What do you guys think about this?
First off, I am really, really surprised that another 4.8 billion naira in 2021 is being earmarked for something that about 4-something billion naira had been spent on in 2013.
I wanted to ask though.
Yeah,
the
Jonathan administration.
This is making news.
I would like.
No, I'm wondering right now. What was the duty of NIA before? I don't.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So that's it. I hope that when we are producing this, you can I'll be able to find the Premium Times headline and share with you so that you can put it in there so that Nigerians can actually see that in 2013 or so. I was working at Premium Times then. Jonathan was criticized for spending about $4 billion naira. It was an Israeli company that set up the infrastructure. Calls are actually being monitored in Nigeria.
Yes.
Let's not joke. Yes. Let's not joke. Calls are already being monitored in Nigeria. SMSs are already being intercepted in Nigeria.
Yeah. So why is this making headline?
It's not that it's making headline. I'm confused as to why the government is spending another 4-something billion on the same thing that they have the infrastructure for.
Oh yeah.
Do you understand? We already have it. When your phone is stolen and you take it to law enforcement agencies, it is the same technology that they used to find out where your phone is. Do you understand? So let's start on that. Nigeria already has this infrastructure. We do not understand why this is coming up here. I don't know if they gave any explanation. I couldn't find any explanation in detail as to what this is supposed to do. Whether it is upgrading, I don't even understand how that would be happening.
Yeah. And another thing I'm thinking about as well, so you said we already have this.
We already have it. Elbit. Elbit is the Israeli company that Jonathan paid money to.
The question I have right now, though, what have they done with all the phone calls that they have been monitoring?
Anyway, that's a different thing. Me, I have a what's the word? I have an answer to this.
Yeah.
It still boils down to that defection thing we keep talking about. Now I'll narrow it down. See, defection. I keep telling you, I'm not in support. I'm one person. You say defection is a sign of a progressive political system. I don't know how you said before.
No,
you said something about defection.
I'm not sure about party
defection.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said it's part of democracy or something.
No, I said cross-carpeting is signs of a budding democracy, growing democracy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I don't know. I'm trying to narrow it down to this, to politics, because at the end of it, it's still politics.
Yes, it all boils.
I do not support defection because, for me, this is just a scheme to. This is just
defection.
He's going to try and tie it.
So I'm trying to narrow this down. Yeah. I think it is a scheme as to how to steal more money by these people. Now,
that's one.
Now, this idea is definitely coming from
allegedly.
Yeah. This scheme, if it actually is a scheme, is coming from people who were in the last administration as well. So people always come with ideas, the same idea. I've seen things being replicated in this.
It's coming from people.
I've seen things from the last administration that's being replicated in this administration. Yesterday, the president said he's going to take railway infrastructure very seriously. This was started by this. I mean, we have other pressing issues other than railway. What's it called?
Railway is a pressing issue. Transport is a pressing issue.
Transport is a pressing issue. Yeah. Transport between Kaduna and Kano. Right now,
it's a pressing issue. There are human beings and Nigerians living there.
I'm not talking about that. Yeah. I'm not talking about that.
And the road is not safe.
How many have you completed so far since you came to office? The Niger Bridge is still yet to be completed.
He's taking it as a pressing issue now.
Okay, and the Niger Bridge is yet to be completed. The old one is still shaky.
No,
it's been shaky since 2015.
You are dividing Nigeria.
I'm not dividing Nigeria. I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to tell you that you cannot cut off the head of yam and expect the body to taste like potato. To taste differently. What I'm trying to tell you right now is we have people in one party not coming up with their own original ideas. They're coming up with things that existed in the previous administration. And clearly, it's just money that's going to be misused at the end of the day. Allegedly, let me use your word, allegedly. So, just like Henry rightly said, we have done this in the past by an Israeli company. Why are you bringing out money? Why are you earmarking money for this same thing again? If you're
already doing it.
And we're already doing it already. So this for me is a result of having people from the last administration defect into the new party because they want juice. They're moving into the next party with the same idea.
So are you basically saying right now that PDP is made up of very corrupt politicians?
And Nigeria has always been.
And the original members of APC are not corrupt because that's what you just
For me, I've always reiterated this in this place that for me, politicians are politicians.
No, you just said that.
The last administration, yes, the last administration was not devoid of corruption. They had lots and lots of corrupt politicians whom this present administration have opened arms. They've opened their arms to come and be saved.
Yes, that's why you should still answer that question.
What I'm saying basically is
that APC politicians, original APC members are not corrupt. They are just being polluted by PDP politicians.
No, I think what Houston is trying to say is that when you have politicians cross carpet from one side to another side, you have the possibility of this type of things happening.
No, but when I'm telling you, when you have politicians cross carpet to a great side, that great side can overly influence them to become great and good.
Did you know before now that our calls were being monitored in Nigeria? Did you know an Israeli company, before Henry mentioned this? I didn't know. You didn't know.
Yep.
I'm just hearing this. And I believe there are a truckload of Nigerians out there who didn't know about this. So there could be need to, move some cash. We've seen this happen in Nigeria. And somebody says, there's this project we did while I was in the last administration. We can actually say we're doing it now. and let's get money. Come, it's national. We're talking about national interest.
As far as sharing ideas on how to loot.
Sharing ideas. So
like this monitoring of WhatsApp messages.
Sorry, it was a $40 million contract in 2013. $40 million contract.
Which is even more than the 4.8 billion now. So we spent more on monitoring calls and text messages, information in Nigeria in the last administration.
I'm still asking though, what has he done? What monitoring the messages and what has he really done in terms of security? Just like the linking of the NIM and
for me,
what have they really achieved though? That's what I really want us to look at. What have we achieved with this? Let's even leave this one. The SIM linkage though with NIM. What have we seen? What have we seen?
Okay, so this is the way I am going to look at it, and this is, I think it is slightly influenced by what Houston has said. We are in the build-up to the most crucial election in our history. Money. Okay, so yeah, we are in the build-up to that.
Oh, so you think you're trying to gather money?
We've seen politicians move for no obvious reasons from their parties where they are comfortable, where they are in charge. Governors are the leaders of the political parties in their harems. Yeah?
Some of them argue that they moved because of insecurity. They want the federal government to support them more.
So you think party would
he claimed that he was moving for the people like the Zamfara. Let me cite Zamfara. Zamfara stated that he needed federal government support. And if you're dealing with a government that will not really support you like we have seen and we've talked about, except you're a party member, and the governor is coming out to tell you right now, I have to protect my people are being killed, but the only argument I have against that is that after he defected, they are still killing in
so what I'm saying is his logic is dead on arrival.
That's only because the hardest hit states by insurgency have actually been
it's an APC guy.
APC states.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
doesn't make any sense. Let me think of something else.
We need to end. The Nigerian army on Wednesday reportedly released 1,009 former Boko Haram terrorists who had been in custody at their Giwa barracks in Maiduguri, Borno State. So the former terrorists were, according to a report by the Punch, because Punch reported this, where they were reportedly handed over to the state government in a secret ceremony. Yeah, these are the words. That was initially billed, to take place at an earlier date, but was suspended indefinitely by the military authorities in the wake of the appointment of the new Chief of Army Staff, Farouk Yahya. So according to sources in the army, the former terrorists were handed over to the Commissioner of Women Affairs and Social Development in the state, who represented the state government at the event. This is what the army officer that spoke to Punch said. So he said the army handed over 1,009 Boko Haram insurgents to the state government today, which was Wednesday. It was done in secret. We were warned not to allow journalists, to the venue. So the military released a statement yesterday anyway. They said this never happened. So what they said is that they didn't deny the fact that 1,009 people were released. Yeah, so what they said, that part of that statement, they said that these people were not former Boko Haram terrorists as were reported, but they were people that were mistakenly linked to Boko Haram, that they did thorough investigation and figured out that they are not Boko Haram terrorists or former Boko Haram. This is what they were 1,009 people that were actually released to the state government. Why are you releasing them to the Commissioner of Women Affairs for Rehabilitation and Empowerment? And with these governments that we've had in power for years, I don't trust the government. So when the military released their own statement, I did not report it because Salisu Abdullah, in my opinion, I don't believe. I believe that they are former Boko Haram members. I'm not saying that they are, but my opinion, I believe that they are. Because we have seen them released. Exactly. Repented, whatever. We saw them wearing white clothes and green cap.
No, it depends on which group of Boko Haram. Some of them wear blue.
No,
blue.
This one wear
some of them wear
white.
white.
So they give them white native to
wear. Whether or not they're
suspect
or Boko Haram, in the words of Stephen A, we don't care.
Yeah, I think that's the government anyway. So
I just want to. I don't know. This is difficult to rationalize, but
just look at it. Whether do you believe that?
In the heat of,
they should try to rehabilitate Nnamdi Kanu.
Hold on. In the heat of the Boko Haram insurgency, especially under the Jonathan administration, between 2013 and early to mid 2014, there was a crackdown by the military where they would raid places and pick up people, lock them up, whether they're terrorists or not. And families were going around saying, we are looking for our sons, we are looking for our husbands, we are looking for this one, because the military has come and raided and cleared. They did not want to hear. It was inhumane to do that. It was very wrong. I think I remember 2 families from one of my visits in 2016 to Maiduguri that actually complained that up till then they had not seen their loved ones. So at that point they did not know whether they had become Boko Haram terrorists or they were still in. The last thing they heard was that they were in, they were in custody and whatnot. If that is what we are dealing with, it is more like receiving kidnapped victims.
Okay.
I want us to put ourselves in the situations of people who were genuinely wrongfully accused of being terrorists that were not terrorists. Do you understand? Hold on.
Why keep it away from the media?
Hold on.
This could have been easily prevented, in my argument. They always release their press statements now.
Yeah.
So why make people speculate? And why was it done in secret? Because it was done, from what they said. They didn't say that this ceremony didn't take place.
I did say that this would be difficult to rationalize, didn't I?
No, like at the end of the day, they could have said what was wrong in releasing a press statement to say that, okay, just the way you have explained it right now, we have 1,009 mistakenly arrested, whatever, that belong to this family. We have done our thorough investigation. We're going to be released. They could have saved this whole speculation and big headlines that tainted this government.
I do think that just like with every other issue in Nigeria, we are completely, what's the word, disconnected. We, the people, are completely disconnected from those people who are leading us. The electoral bill, for example, this as well, for example. We have a group of leaders that do not care what we think. They do not care about our sensibilities. That's the way to put it. You understand? If this was genuinely, as you've said, if this was genuinely as it is, they would have carried it out a different way. There's also, I'm not holding brief for the government, for the military, but there's also the possibility that they felt we've been criticized over and over about releasing Boko Haram terrorists to people, and then now this story has leaked since it was held it was done in private, so it has technically leaked. So they now have to come out and clarify whatever.
I understand the argument, though, but I would buy it if we're dealing with a sincere government. Some people that I don't trust anything that comes out from their mouth at all, but.
Unfortunately,
I think this is just the same thing we've heard over and over. They're still going to release more if more are still in custody.
More
suspects.
More repentant terrorists.
But my own is that, please, if they're releasing terrorists, if they're releasing alleged terrorists, they should allegedly release Nnamdi Kanu.
But Nnamdi Kanu...
they should rehabilitate him. Because the man says he's not feeling too well. His doctors have said he's not feeling too well. They should rehabilitate him and release him, please.
Mr. Houston,
and bring peace to the East.
To hit me, but I want to ask, because I don't want to be a biased guy. Why is it that all Nigerians, politicians, activists, when they get arrested and locked up,
they suddenly have health issues.
One big bundle will be on their neck.
I'll explain to you.
I can't move again.
I'll explain to you. Nnamdi Kanu is big.
No. They're not lying. Featuring Fire Say Ayodele and whatever.
That's different. First of all,
those I did not know that academy.
Can I explain?
Yes,
can I explain?
Please continue.
Fire Say, all those actors.
Just hearing their names.
People are saying in my head right now. When that AFCC shared boasting the first time, then the second time the name was
all those actors you mentioned, Fayose, they were not being picked up by GSS. One. Secondly, Nnamdi Kanu is not a politician. These people were politicians.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Now, Nnamdi Kanu did not feign all of these things on camera. These other people did it on camera. Nnamdi Kanu is being tortured. These people are not being tortured.
Allegedly.
What's allegedly? He's being tortured. Who goes into TSS without being tortured?
We didn't see him being tortured. Allegedly, we have to protect the integrity of the
Okay. Allegedly being tortured.
Yeah.
His doctors have said he's being tortured. Now, these are doctors who have sworn on oath not to lie about certain things. And this man's being tortured. He's not being tortured. They bring him out. Secondly, why would you... Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped. Now, this is not allegedly. This is not alleged. Have you seen him? When you carry people, you put them on camera. If you haven't seen him, if it's being done in secret, then it's a kidnap.
Allegedly.
What is allegedly about this one? Have you seen him? Has there been any media person who has actually taken a picture of him in Nigeria?
There were pictures now. There were pictures
of a man masked, of him being masked.
There were pictures.
Wait, it wasn't alleged that Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and brought to Nigeria. It wasn't alleged that he was taken to the court and he wasn't allowed. Media personalities were not allowed to see him, or media personnel were not allowed to see him. That wasn't alleged.
Yeah.
That he was being a hood was being put over his head. That wasn't alleged. Then now, why is it alleged that he's being...
Sorry, 1 second. Was there an explanation given for a hood being put over his head?
No explanation.
I didn't see that one.
Yes. That's why they couldn't get pictures of him.
But there are pictures of him. That's what
Where are the pictures of him?
The Fendi one.
The one in Fendi.
And the one working with prison
Did you see the Fendi? What made you realize that Fendi picture, that picture of him in Fendi was actually, that's just one picture. What made you realize that picture of him? Is that how they take pictures of any other politician that's been arrested?
Walking down the staircase from the court now.
Okay. Was that the number of pictures? Was that the number of pictures the president had when he won the election?
Yes, no, yeah.
Okay.
When people win elections, we see more pictures. When people are being arrested, we see more pictures. When Fayose complained of a broken neck, we saw a picture of him lying down on the stretcher and him standing. We saw pictures of him lying. When they went to court, we saw Nnamdi Kanu. Okay, he was taken to court.
26th of July will be in court now.
26th of July, when judges are going on holidays. Oh, you've not heard that the judges are actually going on holidays. So
let me counter you with that one though,
okay.
Because I joined to report those stories, but we know that we have holiday judges now. Come on.
Then why would you?
So the judges never shut down completely. The court never shuts down completely. Not all of them go.
I would revisit this matter with you on the 26th when there's no judgment. We'll revisit this matter. But my point is, my point right now with this thing is, yes, I like the fact that we allege everything, allege. But if Nnamdi Kanu wasn't allegedly, if he was brought to Nigeria and it was not alleged, it was not allegedly. If he was taken to court and it was not allegedly, and if he was being hooded and it was not allegedly, then I think using the term kidnapped, Nnamdi Kanu being kidnapped, what the British are already using, that he was kidnapped, because I mean that was wrongful and forcefully brought to Nigeria. So I think that should be alleged.
Just so you guys know, Nnamdi Kanu and his kidnap or his whatever was not part of what we're discussing today.
Yeah, we'll put this one for Instagram, sure.
Yeah. You know why I'm saying this? Because I mean, in the last 1 week or in the last 2 weeks, I mean, these guys haven't rested. I don't know who it is, but the people are being killed still in the East. People are being killed, and we don't know how long this will continue because of one man. So I think whatever is happening the government should sort that out.
Before you jumped here, please. What were we talking about?
We're talking about allegedly bringing out 1,400 Boko Haram. 1,009 Boko Haram ex-terrorists who are being rehabilitated.
Honorable, off your mic. Honorable Minister, off your mic. It's okay.
So I'm saying they should allegedly rehabilitate Nnamdi Kanu and send it to the hospital for him to get treatment.
No, but it's not done. The episode is not done for me. What we have, I just wanted to ask, did you guys know anything about this indigenous people of Nigeria? I saw it yesterday in the headline. IPN.
That's probably of Nigeria.
IPON.
No, IPN.
Just IPN.
Yeah, IPN.
I saw
it yesterday in the headline.
I'm not advocating.
I'm only saying we're for Nigeria.
I know. See. If there's anything I've learned, If there's anything I've learned is the divide. The divide.
They are not tenants.
Creating a dichotomy in this thing. That's what I mean.
No, my hand no did.
Those are the only people fighting for Nigeria.
No,
when you read all the comments.
No, but those are not the only people. Maybe on social.
Next topic. This is the next topic.
Is this the last topic?
Done with the episode.
Yeah, this is the last topic.
Yeah. Really? No wonder we're talking this much.
Indigenous people.
Alright, so let me clarify.
It's cruise time.
What I'm saying is I'm not a supporter of Nnamdi Kanu, but I'm saying if you are beginning to rehabilitate, if you believe.
What was he talking about?
Wait. I need to clarify. I mean,
let me say something. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Before people take me out of context. What I'm trying to say is, if we have a government that believes in rehabilitating, de-radicalizing of terrorists,
world recognized terrorists,
then this government should also believe in rehabilitating and de-radicalizing and finally releasing national terrorists.
Why are you not fighting for El Zazaki?
El Zazaki is not a terrorist. He was never called a terrorist.
No, but he's in...
El Zazaki has people that are fighting for him. He's fighting his own fight too.
These people, IPOB has people fighting.
And do you see what happens? A police officer was killed just not so far from Utako the other day.
Yeah?
Right?
Yes.
Police
you didn't hear about it? It was all over the news.
INM people.
What do you call them? El Zazaki's people. Yeah, they're not getting that radical because their man is not being released. So that's what they say. Yes.
I didn't hear that one, no, and I don't.
A police officer was killed. Quote me, or you can actually quote me, and this is not allegedly. A police officer was being killed and was reported even on Brekete Family Show.
Did they protest recently?
They protested sometime in June, early June. They protested, and the police officer was walking and he was stabbed. A woman, a man, a taxi driver had to leave his job and carried him. They took him from one hospital to another hospital, and he finally died. He was stabbed because the El Zazaki people were protesting.
So what did he do though?
Even if you act like it doesn't concern us,
was he attacking them? Like was the
he wasn't attacking them. When these people come out, they go after, just like IPOB are doing their own. Whenever they come out to protest for one thing, they go after. Uniform people. Uniform people are a threat to them, basically, allegedly, whatever. They are a threat to them. So they go after people that seem to be threatening to them. And most times, who is more threatening than the uniform man? And innocent uniform men who are actually fathers and husbands die in the process.
Let me take Sal's position for a second and moderate.
All right, moderate.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
No, I don't even need up to 5 minutes. First of all, Houston, just so you know, I don't think that there's any security official in Nigeria that is innocent. But let's go on.
No, you can't. No,
if you were
to every general, there's an exception.
Please, you guys, believe what you want to believe now. I'm not holding anybody. I'm just saying that. There's no innocent person among all our security personnel. Just leave that. Now, I want to ask you.
Yes.
What is your wish from Nigeria? What is your... What do you wish for? No, I don't even want the Nigeria of your dream. What do you wish for from Nigeria? Let's use short term now. Maybe another time we can do mid-term and long term.
My 2023 goal, because we're going into another election, I want Nigerians to be able to appoint the right leaders. I want us to have the right leaders. My definition of a right leader is a leader that cares for the country, a leader that cares for the people, a leader that cares about this country looking good, other people feeling good, and the country just working. I'm tired of just selfish people. I'm tired of people that just want to have all the money in the world. Come on, where are you taking money to? Take money, live your comfortable life, but still want to work. I don't like the fact that our leaders are not really working and they don't really care. I want leaders that actually care about the people. I want a governor that will drive through a street of Lagos and not be proud that place is as dirty as that. I want governors to start sitting down, and start arguing about bragging points. Is that in my state I have this, I have 400 bridges I've done within my 2 years. We've set up this industry. We have all these things that are working. I want leaders to start
enough of your prayer points. Enough of your prayer points. Miracles don't happen. Miracles don't happen in Nigeria.
Apparently, want so much. For me,
wow.
Actually, I just want somebody who will bring back our fucked up currency to the.
What do you mean by somebody? You're talking about president, leader,
to a very, very considerable level where I don't have to walk around the whole of Abuja trying to get airline tickets, just because my currency is messed up. So please, what I'm trying to say,
when it comes to that currency one, I have to beat you on that, because there are Nigerians that earn dollars. So if
Nigerians earning dollars is just a handful.
If the dollar is high, it's good for some people.
It is not good for anybody.
It's good for my business.
You've not earned the naira. You've not earned the naira when the naira is actually stable.
It's good for publishers.
You know the highest currency in the world.
So don't bring.
Wait, 1 minute. You know the highest currency in the world.
That's the only thing you want from them.
That's what I want, because that affects everything, bro. It's not selfish interest. Oh, so you like the dollar? So you want those people actually like the naira to deteriorate?
It's okay.
I'm saying we talk about bad politicians, and I'm seeing one right next to me.
Nigeria do you want?
So for me, it's
Harry. Basically, I'm trying to say there are people that earn in dollar, like he said, but they're just a handful. Majority of Nigeria. I'm going to talk about Nigeria. One of Osibajo's aides said something. She said, the Nigeria that we talk about every time is not the Nigeria that speak on microphone. It's not the Nigeria that come to government house. Bro, you're saying there's some people that benefit off our deteriorating currency. Brother, the Nigeria are the downtrodden people in the waterside, in the grassroots areas, the people that carry plates and walk on the street and can't even afford one meal a day. That is Nigeria, not just you and me. We're opportune. We are the opportune Nigeria. Bro, the Nigeria are the large, they are the bulk of this nation. They are the people that can actually stab you for 20 naira. That is Nigeria. They are the people that they will give 100 naira. The uneducated people will give 100 naira to come and vote. And they'll come and thumbprint for the wrong set of people just because they need something to eat. That is Nigeria. It is not just you and me. You and me we know we know our left from our right. Anyway, so please, it's quite touching when you tell me that you like the way the naira is because some people benefit from it. No, I wasn't being selfish. I'm saying a stable economy.
It's okay.
Where even if you beg for 1 naira and they give you 1 naira, no, it's okay.
No, don't do that though.
It's okay.
I talk about ticket, but that's not just my problem. That's not just my problem. If for instance somebody tips you, and you know, man,
it's okay.
I need a stable currency, please. That's all I need. So after a stable currency, we'll look for the right leader for the right.
For me, it would be that something can be done with respect to food security in Nigeria. I listened to some experts talk over the last 2 days, and it does not look good. First off, we do not have reserves.
This is about to be long.
No, it's very short. We don't have reserves. We are having unpredictable rainfall at this particular time. Climate change, the effects of climate change setting in big time.
America, they're having heat.
And then we have the issues with security where farmers cannot get to the farms. What this means is that we cannot have cases where rice has been stored over several harvest seasons and then you can eat it. So as we go towards 2023, what is most likely going to hit Nigeria, and it's not going to affect just the people that Houston is talking about, it's going to be all of us. All of us. I heard Dr. Ruben Abati talking on Arise TV today saying a supermarket sold him one finger of banana for 3,500 naira. Or we're attempting to sell him.
I saw something on Instablog recently. Someone said they bought bread for 5,000.
Put a banana on seatbelt and said,
we are in critical periods already. And the way the value chain, this particular value chain works is you don't start to do it now. What you do now has effects several years from now. So what we are facing now is the effect of what we've been complaining about several years before now. Do you understand? So my wish for Nigeria in the short term is that something is able to be done to save us from the food insecurity that we are about to we are falling into already, and the food inflation as well that we are battling with. So that's
wow. All right. Thank you guys for today. I think we had a great time.
Thank you so much.
Time exactly 7 p.m.
Thank you guys.
So thank you guys for watching. We've come to the end of today's episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Page 36 TV on YouTube. Comment, share, please, and thank you.